The only person who gets to torture my brother is me.
So, that's what you're leading with, huh? Okay, well, this is a fun one, isn't it? I'm a Tim Burton fan. I don't know if he's worked in TV before, but I've always liked his movies, mainly his earlier stuff. He's gotten more hit and miss over the years, but whenever there's a new Tim Burton project, it always gets my attention. And Tim Burton and Wednesday Addams kind of seemed like a match made in heaven, so I was excited to check this show out. I was less enthusiastic about the show being run by the creators of Smallville, which I was not a big fan of, but curiosity won out in the end. And concerns about the writers notwithstanding, there's a lot to like here. Wednesday is pretty good, as long as you can get past the first 5 minutes. And I have a feeling there are some viewers who won't be able to do that because, oh my god, the first 5 minutes are fucking terrible! They're so bad, it almost feels like a totally different show. And this was all in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything here, but the show begins with Wednesday getting kicked out of school. Pugsley is being bullied, so Wednesday decides to get back at the bully by setting piranhas loose in the school pool to castrate him. You know, because horrific acts of violence in a school. Yeah, there's nothing controversial or topical about that at all. And it doesn't even make sense either. Why does she go after the bully in the first place? Why does Pugsley have a problem with getting beaten up? Shouldn't he like that? I thought pain was the Addams' kink or something. And there's just no getting around that doing this kind of thing in a school setting after the last year or two was just pushing all the wrong buttons. I have no idea why they didn't just scrap this sequence and do a rewrite, because they had the time to do it. And even more baffling is what happens after, because Wednesday's only punishment for gruesomely maiming this poor bastard is getting expelled from a school she didn't even like in the first place. And not only that, but the bully's parents decided to not file attempted murder charges. We don't know why they didn't, they just decided not to, even though the case against Wednesday was as open and shut as it gets. Wednesday trained those piranhas to go after that kid specifically, and we know this because the piranhas ignored everyone else in the pool and went straight for him. That was absolutely, no question about it, attempted murder on school grounds in front of dozens of witnesses, and for some reason, the kid's parents don't think it's a big enough deal to press charges. Oh, it's fine, we didn't really want grandkids that badly, and what does Junior even need with 2 testicles anyway, right? Right?
Attempted murder. Now honestly, what is that? Do they give a Nobel Prize for attempted chemistry, do they?
What? Also, Wednesday is having psychic visions now. They just kinda throw that in there. So yeah, that's how the show starts, and it's really fucking bad. But the good news is, when you're starting at the bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. Unless you're like Batwoman or She-Hulk, in which case you just dig yourselves in even deeper. But thankfully, Wednesday is not like Batwoman or She-Hulk, because after those first 5 minutes, which I guess we can write off as temporary insanity on the writer's part, the show actually becomes quite good. From then on, the show finds a really good balance between the darkly comedic and the cartoonishly horrifying. You just have to get through the opening sequence first. In fact, I would recommend you just skip that part altogether. Toggle forward a few minutes and start the show with Wednesday being dropped off at her new school. That's where the story really begins anyway, and that's when the show becomes what it's supposed to be. And if the opening didn't put you off the show completely, not a guarantee I'll admit, there's a lot of good stuff to enjoy here. Most of the show takes place in and around Nevermore Academy, this boarding school for kids who are different. And it's a very strange, kooky place, which means this is where you take Tim Burton off the leash and just let him do his thing. And his fingerprints are all over this stuff. Better his than someone else's, I guess. The sets are beautiful. Everything is dark and gothic, but has sort of an exaggerated funhouse aspect to it. It's kind of like he crossed Wayne Manor from Batman 89 with the house from Beetlejuice. I love the sets. There's so much imagination there. And what makes it even better? Danny Elfman does the music. Or some of it, at least. Burton directing and Elfman scoring is never a bad combination. I was actually getting nostalgic for those early Tim Burton movies while I was watching this. But the best thing in the show, bar none, is Jenna Ortega as Wednesday. This is a star-making performance. If this show doesn't make Jenna Ortega a household name, there's something wrong. She is so fucking good here. I mean, I thought she was one of the better actors in Scream earlier this year, but I didn't know she had this kind of charisma. This is like you took a really good character actor and put her in a lead actress's body. And no shade on Christina Ricci's iteration, which was great, but I think this is the definitive version of the character now. Ortega gives Wednesday so much personality and wit and dry humor, and she emotes just enough to let you know there's a human being in there, even though Wednesday is, by her nature, not an emotive character. Which was something I was wondering about before the show started. Like, how do you build a show around Wednesday, who is the least expressive member of the Addams family? I mean, you can probably count the number of times she cracks a smile in the whole season on one hand. She's great in an ensemble, but won't a character like that have a limited appeal as a lead? How do you make that work if she doesn't have more to her? Well, the writers accounted for that. You make it work by making the fact that she's not expressive and doesn't emote very much at all part of her arc. Throughout the show, characters are often commenting how Wednesday is very antisocial and very off-putting and treats other people like garbage. Her classmates, her principal, even Gomez and Morticia, which is weird now that I think about it. She seems to like Pugsley and Uncle Fester, but her parents? Not so much. And these traits are presented not as flaws exactly, but they hold her back somewhat. And the message is sent that Wednesday kind of needs to broaden her horizons a little. So over time, she starts to form attachments to certain people and make friends and even emote a tiny bit when the scene calls for it. She's still very Wednesday about everything, but she does start to come out of her shell. And her being so closed off actually works surprisingly well because they surround her with supporting characters who are very expressive and much more outgoing, so she has a ton of things to bounce off of and react to. And all of them are good actors too. Some are more interesting than others, but the important ones I thought they nailed. Gwendolyn Christie is terrific as the principal, though she is a little underutilized unfortunately. Christina Ricci as one of her teachers was fun to do kind of a passing of the baton thing, and there were a couple nods to her past with the Addams Family franchise in there that I liked. But my favorite was the relationship with her roommate Enid. This was a stroke of genius. Enid is this super cheerful, colorful, bubbly, polar opposite of Wednesday, who you'd think would be her worst nightmare, and she is for a while, but then they become these really unlikely odd couple type friends, and no one is more surprised about that than Wednesday herself. It's actually really charming the way that develops. And I love what they did with Wednesday and Thing, too. Thing is fantastic. He's just a disembodied hand, but he's got so much personality. He's a character in his own right. Him and Wednesday have this really fun dynamic between them where she bosses him around, but she cares about him more than she lets on, and he also tries to look out for her and sometimes give her a little push to do things that she might not want to do, but which are probably good for her. And you really feel for him when shit goes bad, too. I mean, I kind of always thought of Thing as like the Addams Family pet, but when bad stuff happens to your pets, that cuts deep. There's some really effective stuff with Thing in this show. I like Thing a lot. As long as he stays on his side of the screen. What? Come into my home, will you? Sawed-off motherfucker. Not everything is as good as that, though. The murder mystery plot takes a little while to unfold, so for the first half of the season, they're focusing more on the school stuff, class rivalries, teen angst type things. Kid A has a crush on Kid B, but also just broke up with Kid C, and Kid C isn't over it yet, so there's tension there. And then there's the stupid young adult misunderstandings that could easily be cleared up if they just talk to each other. You know, all the usual teen tropes that have been run into the ground for decades now, and it's not awful. It doesn't get annoying like a CW show would or anything like that, but this is typically the least interesting part of the season, because for a while they seem to be fighting against the urge to turn the show into some more generic teen soap. I'm not here for that. I don't think a lot of people are. It doesn't go on for too long, though. It sort of drains out after a few episodes. The kids more or less decide who likes who, so the love triangle shit pretty much goes away, and then the murder mystery plot takes center stage, so they've all got more important things to worry about from then on. And this is when the show gets really good. It's Wednesday playing Nancy Drew, trying to solve a mystery, and there's killers and monsters and secret societies and future visions of terrible things happening, and somehow her parents are wrapped up in it. And what's fun about this is that there's a lot of twists and turns and curveballs they throw at you to keep you guessing, and it's effective enough to where I thought I knew who the real villain or villains were a couple different times, but I kept changing my mind when the next plot development happened, or going back to someone I was thinking about earlier, because there are enough red herrings on the table, almost too many actually, that nearly every major character is a potential suspect at one time or another. Like someone knowing something they shouldn't, or being in a certain place at a certain time, but they have an alibi, but maybe we don't believe the alibi. They do a good job casting the net pretty wide, and even if it ends up being the person you were probably suspecting from early on, the journey getting there is fun enough that it still felt like a solid reveal. Once that reveal happens, though, it kind of takes the wind out of the sails somewhat. The mystery is what was propelling the narrative, so once the mystery is solved and everything is out in the open, the climax loses something. The finale is not one of the stronger episodes, I think. The writers have to pull a couple last-minute Deus Ex Machinas out of their ass to make the story work, and that's always weak sauce. There's some dumb stuff with certain characters uncharacteristically acting like total idiots and refusing to believe who the real killer is when all the evidence is right there in front of them for no reason except they can't know who the killer is because the plot doesn't say so yet. Also, Wednesday's psychic visions in general are often used as a bit of a narrative crutch. Like sometimes when the writers aren't sure how to advance the story, Wednesday just has a vision, which gives her a new clue to work on. I'd like there to be more of a rhyme and reason to her visions, and maybe we'll get there later, but right now they just happen whenever the plot needs them to. So yeah, the finale, while still good, isn't really their best work. Once the story is done with, though, and all that's left is the adventure aspect and the big final battle, it's still exciting, and the emotional moments still work pretty well, and overall, they do enough things right that I thought it stuck the landing for the most part. There is one part that's been bothering me, though. It's about the reveal of the monster, and I don't think the writers did this intentionally, but whether they meant it or not, the monster turns into a weird, out-of-place commentary about mental illness that seemed myopic and kind of insensitive. And there's no way I can talk about this without spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead to, this part right here. With that said, welcome back to the spoiler section. Okay. The reveal of Tyler as the Hyde monster. Not totally unexpected, though I was hoping it would be somebody else because I liked him and Wednesday together. But the way they explained his heel turn really struck the wrong note for me. One of the first things we learn about Hydes is that they're basically normal people until their outcast nature is somehow unlocked. And once that happens, they become the willing instrument of the person who unlocked it. They basically imprint on this person and are compelled to do their bidding. And the writers don't spell it out exactly, but it's strongly implied that once a person becomes a Hyde, their thinking becomes warped, and they're coerced to do things that they wouldn't normally do, because if their master wants them to do it, then they almost have no choice, and I guess their minds are twisted to the point that they believe what their master wants is also what they want. But because of how Tyler is treated after this is revealed, I felt like that was sending a pretty bad message. There's even a line at one point that likens being a Hyde to being bipolar, and in a lot of ways that metaphor works. So I don't know why nobody was trying to help Tyler. I mean, he inherited this condition from his mother that is dormant until Laurel hypnotizes him, tortures him, traumatizes the out of him, creating stressors that cause him to go insane and turn evil because of something he has no control over. and now he's just a villain. But it's basically accepted that Tyler only turned evil because Laurel forced him to be this way. Even Wednesday acknowledges that. Laurel wanted him as her instrument, and because she unlocked the hide inside him, he pretty much had no choice but to do what she wanted. So it's entirely possible that if Laurel died, her influence over Tyler would cease, and he might revert back to his previously good self. But that possibility is never even brought up. They just treat him like he's evil now, and that's the end of it. And yeah, Tyler did bad things, but he did them because he was victimized and made to do them by Laurel. He was Laurel's puppet. Before she came along, he wasn't like this. He was a normal dude. But the writers take such a narrow-minded approach to it. They're so quick to demonize Tyler, and no one even tries to get through to him. No one tries to appeal to any humanity that might still be inside him, or try to break Laurel's hold on him somehow. As far as they're concerned, we shouldn't try to help Tyler. He doesn't deserve our help. He's the bad guy now. The end. And for anyone who struggles with mental health or trauma or anything like that, that message, whether it was intentional or not, was just really uncomfortable. And it's strangely out of place when you've got another character like Uncle Fester who is very clearly out of his fucking mind, but is still presented as a lovable character, albeit a bank robber apparently. Not sure where that came from. Why is Fester's insanity quirky and cute while Tyler's is evil? Like, where's the line? They're both mentally f***ed up, but the show makes all kinds of excuses for Fester. Meanwhile, the second we find out what Tyler's deal is, he's automatically the scum of the earth. I don't know what's going on there. Now, if they get a second season, there's room for them to fix this. Maybe the characters can come to realize that this is more complicated than they thought, and it's not so black and white. If so, Tyler could be redeemed pretty easily, I think. And I hope he is, because holy shit, that character got a raw deal. But for that to happen, first, the writers have to realize that their treatment of this character was pretty messed up. And I don't know if they do. And I haven't seen anybody else talking about this, so who knows? So that business is an unfortunate black mark on an otherwise enjoyable show. Also, the first 5 minutes exist, and that's not good. That I want to see get rectified in the future. And that can be done, the writers just have to want to do it. In the meantime, though, there's still plenty to like about Wednesday. The story is interesting, it's got that classic Tim Burton magic, so the music, production design, direction are all terrific, and like I said, Jenna Ortega knocks this role out of the park. The show would be worth watching just for her, but additionally, there's a lot of other stuff to have fun with too. And it's not perfect, there are some things they need to work on, but the show does improve as it goes along, so maybe they're already doing that. So I hope this show gets a season 2. I like Wednesday, I like the world they've created here, there's a lot more they can do with this, and I want to see them get the chance to do it. Thanks so much for watching, and while you're here, please do all the other YouTube things. Ding the bell icon and follow my social media so you can always be notified when I upload new stuff. Links to that into my live streaming channel are in the description box. Thumbs up the video and leave a comment. It really helps out with the algorithm. Share, subscribe, make sure you're still subscribed, and I'll be back with... What? What are you still doing here? Oh, you want some more of this? Is that what you're looking for? 'Cause I'm happy to oblige, asshole. I can do this all... Whoa. Hey, just calm down, man. Calm down. Be cool. Okay, just take it easy. I was just screwing around. That's it. Come on, we're all adults here. We can be rational. I mean, there's no reason to make this a big...